Guys, you know I get really excited when new vehicles show up here at the RC Driver Workshop, but I am super excited about this one. This is the new Redcat Gen 8 Scout 2, and there is a lot of people talking about this truck on the internet right now. It is an awesome, ready-to-run scale crawler, and it is just loaded with features. Redcat is on a new direction. They are on a mission, and this is one of the first vehicles from that camp to come out fully designed here in the US. And so far, by what I've seen, they've done it right. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go into a fully detailed review. Yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of talking in this one. So I'm gonna put a key in the description below to let you know what times, talk about different parts of the review. So if you just wanna see action, you could of course check out the time key down there and skip ahead. And you know what? Hey, while you're there, hit that subscribe button. All right, it's time to take this over to the regular workbench, dip into the box, and show you guys what it's all about. So are you guys ready to get into the new Gen 8? I am, but first I want to show you guys some details on the box just to make sure we don't miss it later on down the road. And first up, I got to talk to you guys about the body. This is a licensed international body. It is an awesome looking body. Wait till I take it out. But this particular kit here is obviously ready to run, four-wheel drive, comes with a 2.4 gigahertz radio system, waterproof electronics, and it goes for about $299 from what I saw on the web right now. But let's get to those details that I want to show you on the box. And starting off right here is the electronics. So again, waterproof electronics, 17-turn 550 motor, 40 amp speed controller by Hobbywing. It's got some really cool looking bumpers on there. And the front bumper is actually already drilled out for a winch. So that is very cool. We've got licensed Interco Super Swampers on here. I love the look of those tires. It is really cool to see it on here. Got some rock sliders on the side, and it's got a low CG battery tray. We'll take a closer look at that. Pretty neat looking receiver box too. I got to show you guys there is extension wires that come out of the receiver box, which makes taking things apart later on down the road nice and easy. It's got steel rings on the beadlock wheels. And then over here is a couple other things. We'll get through this, guys, I promise. But I did want to call out, it has 32 rubber seal bearings throughout this kit. It has a pretty unique slipper clutch setup on there. Mod 1 gears on the inside of the transmission. The steering angle. This is the one thing that I wanted to show you guys that I didn't want to forget about later. It's got a 47-degree steering angle on there, and it actually has 5 degrees of caster in there as well. So this thing, you know, by the looks of it, the steering is on point. All right, the other thing I wanted to point out, we've got 73.5 millimeters of ground clearance in the center there. It is an adjustable wheelbase, so you could go and adjust this from 312 millimeters all the way up to 336 millimeters. And then another important feature is the approach angle and descent angle here. So on the approach, we've got 61 degrees in the front. And on the departure angle, we've got a tad over 39 degrees, so that really helps out with clearance on the trail. There's some neat stuff going on the body. We'll see that later. It is also LED ready, so you go throw 5mm LED lights in there. But you know what? Let's get into the box. And I've actually already had this open, so this thing is ready to come out. I've gone and checked everything out. I couldn't wait to unbox it in front of you guys. I had to check it out myself. But obviously we've got the instruction manual there. We've got some plastic parts to talk about. Here is the truck, guys. Check this machine out. Super cool. And then down in the bottom of the box, I was surprised to see this. It's got a spare tire in there. And then over here is the radio system. Let me just grab this out of here. There's the Redcat radio. Ditch that. All right, so let me get set up here. We'll give you guys a nice angle to check this thing out while I talk about the radio system. So the radio is a basic radio system. It is a obviously 2.4 gigahertz radio system. It's got a nice feel to it, but it has the basic trim functions in here. You know, your steering reverse, your throttle reverse, steering dual rate, trims, and that's where your on-off switch is underneath this top panel. But it's got a really nice look to the radio. I like the graphics that they put on here, the decals, and of course it runs on 4 AA's, which you're going to need to pick up. Now let's talk about the instruction manual really quick. Obviously, if you're new to RC, go through this. I've actually been through this manual already, and they did a great job of laying out what you need to know about this vehicle. And it actually answered some of my questions, like why is there a spare tire in here? And well, let me show you what's in this bag. So in the accessory bag are a number of different things to finish off the details of this truck if you want to. These are the LED clips, so if you do get LED lights for this particular truck, they give you the backing and the hardware to install that. And then there are body mount accessories here. So there are some long body posts, and there's actually front body posts as well. So we've got those, and then there's even a cross member to help stiffen up the body mounts. And these are some pretty thick body mounts. And you're probably going, well, why aren't there body mounts on the car? Well, I'm going to show you in just a minute. But again, there are some other little plastic pieces along with it. But this is what I really wanted to show you guys. This is the spare tire mount. How cool is that? In the back body area, there's a cross bracing in there, and you can mount this in there, and you can just drill a small hole, and you could put a spare tire on the back of the truck if you want to. How cool is that? All right, now last of the details, basically a bind plug and a antenna tube, and then some ESC instructions. So Redcat's got you covered on everything that you're going to need. The only other thing you're going to need, obviously, is a battery for it. 2S LiPo, 3S LiPo, 7-cell nickel metal hydride if you want to, and then, of course, charger. I already talked to you guys about the AA's for the radio system. Now we can get into this truck here. And I think Redcat did an awesome job with this body. Check this thing out. I mean, this just looks so awesome sitting here on the workbench, and I can't imagine what it's going to look like on the trails. Actually, I've seen a few videos of it. It looks super cool out there, just driving through rocks and dirt and stuff like that. But there are a number of things that have really caught my eye with this body. Starting off with the front grille. This is a molded front grille, so there is a decal behind there for the radiator, so you can see through it, see the radiator. That's very cool. The headlights here, there are buckets behind there, so you go throw the LED lights in there, and obviously there is a clear lens over the front. Moving on, there are these really nice looking fenders. Now I noticed a couple of people say, well, those aren't exact, replicas of what a Scout had. You know what, guys? It's open to a little bit of interpretation in my book. I mean, I think they were just looking to give you guys something really, really cool looking. Obviously they want the Scout name on there, but I think, with these style of fender flares and everything, they were just building a really cool looking truck for you guys. And you know what? I really think they nailed it. Now, the only thing that I would actually give it a point deduction for would be, it's got window decals. It doesn't have clear windows on there. But you know what? It still looks really cool. It looks like a really nice tinted window. But here's one thing I wanted to show you guys. Check out these mirrors. The mirror actually swivels. It's screwed on. So when you're driving, there is less likely of a chance for this thing to break off. If you roll it over, I think that mirror is just going to fold over. You don't have to worry about those breaking off. I thought that was pretty cool. Then let's take a look at the truck out back here. As you can see, there are rear tail lenses on this. So again, there are light buckets. You can put 5mm LED lights in there, and it will shine through these clear lenses. There's just 2 screws that hold on the lens, and that looks really, really nice. Then we'll talk about the bumpers in a minute. But the one thing that really caught my eye when I took this out of the box was there are no body clips. None. None whatsoever. They do give you the body post, but you know what holds on the body? Velcro. Check that out. Just 4 pads of Velcro, and that secures it to the body. And from what I've read, they actually have an optional magnet system that you can put in there, rare earth magnets, where you go and 2-side tape the magnets down, and you can use that if you don't want to use the Velcro. But check this out underneath here. Check out this inner body system. So it's kind of like an inner fender well, and then here's another inner fender well. And what these do is they basically help just guide the body down onto the fender well, so it secures the body in the proper location. So that is pretty neat there. And obviously that's what these fender flares bolt to. Up front here, there are those LED light buckets. Same with the rear. 3 LED lights could go into the rear buckets on each side. And here's that cross member. That is where the spare tire mounts. So there is a lot going on inside of this body, but it's just really cool how this just drops down and it kind of guides itself in place, and then you push it down and it's secure. So obviously I got to pull this back off because we have to see what's inside here. Now let's check out this new truck. Again, this is all new from Redcat, designed here in the US, and this is a first for them, and I think they did an awesome job from what I've seen. I've gone ahead actually and taken a few things apart, and I love the way this thing goes together. The size of the screws are all, similar in size. So when I was taking the transmission apart, pretty much all of those 2mm button head screws were the same length. When I was working with the 1.5s, they were all the same in length. So I think this thing is really easy to work on. When I was pulling apart, it was really easy to take apart. I actually didn't want to take it apart because, you know, it could be very time consuming, but this wasn't. I had it apart and back together in no time. So I think this is going to be really easy for people to work on. All right, so let's start going over some of the features itself. And let's start off with the front bumper here. It's got that nice approach angle to it. It's already drilled so you can put a winch on the front, and it has really thick mounts. So hopefully, you know, that bumper won't snap off if you're, you know, trailing out there really hard and hit something. It's got some really thick posts. And the bumper mounts on a nice composite cross member that attaches to the frame rails on here. And these frame rails are huge. They seem like they're much thicker frame rail than some of the others that are out there. You know, the box of it is much larger. And at first I was like, well, you know, how is that scale wise? But you know what? I've bent frame rails on other vehicles out there. And so I'm actually really excited to see the size of the frame rails on here. I think they did a great job on those. Of course, they're steel, they're stamped, and you know, they flow nicely through there. It seems like it has really good clearance in the front and rear for the axles. So I think they did their homework there. All right, moving back to the shock towers. These are composite shock towers on here, but they are super thick, guys, and they are very, very strong. I mean, there is just no flex in those, but what's really nice is they have a number of different holes so you can move the shock position on there depending on, you know, when you go and change wheelbase or if you even want to change the shock angle a little bit. That option is there if you want it. And now, if you look in the center between the two shocks, you'll notice that's where the body posts are. So you can go put in body posts if you do want to go and swap out bodies. Maybe, you know, something besides the International Scout here. They do give you those body posts and they slip in right there. Nice little cross member going on. And it's time to talk about I guess we'll talk about the steering servo next, because it's mounted up front here, chassis mount steering servo. And it is a metal geared servo, high torque servo, and most importantly, it is waterproof. But what's even better is it comes with a metal servo arm. How cool is that? Really excited to see that in the land of, you know, plastic servo horns. I think it's just a great job when a company includes a metal one. Obviously, they did that here. And then, of course, metal links. We've got, you know, a metal steering link here, metal link that spans between the steering knuckles, and then on the end here is a turnbuckle, so you go and adjust the toe if you want to. You don't have to go and slip spacer in there anymore. You can just go and turn the turnbuckle. That is very cool. I do like the rod ends on here. They are plastic, but you know, metal ball studs in there, so that is done really well. I like the steering on here. The steering servo bolts right into some brackets here, right in the front, really easy to access, and just an overall nice setup. All right, next thing up that's really, you know, popping out that I need to talk to you guys, fender wells. Check this out, guys. Fender wells front and rear. And when the body's on here, you know, you really don't see much of the inside of the vehicle. We've got these floor pans in the center, so that helps, you know, just seal up this vehicle and, you know, gives it that more realistic look. You know, out there crawling up on rocks and you're looking up at the vehicle, you're not looking inside at wires and stuff like that. I think that's pretty neat, and it's really what manufacturers have to do. That's what we want, and that's what Redcat gave us. Why don't we move on to the transmission next? And the transmission is loaded with some pretty neat stuff. So bolted to it first is a 550 17 turn motor. So we've got a lot of torque here, a lot of power to it. And then it is mounted to a metal motor plate, which is really neat. We've seen some plastic motor plates out there. Not here. I definitely like that Redcat didn't go and save a few pennies there. They gave us the metal motor plate that we wanted. And as you can notice, the motor is mounted towards the front, so we get some more weight over the front wheels. Now inside, it is a 32 pitch metal pinion gear, and that goes to a 32 pitch spur gear. And what's neat about the spur gear is it's fitted with slipper pads. But what's really neat about the slipper pads is they are crushed by hexagon plates. And what you could do is if you don't want a slipper clutch in there, you can remove the pads and put those plates into the spur gear and then lock everything up. So you could just go and run a lock transmission versus having that slipper clutch in there. And that's just a really nice option to have right out of the box. Now inside of this center transmission here are plastic gears supported by ball bearings, but they are Mod 1 gears, guys. So they have really big teeth on them, so I don't, even though it's plastic, I don't really see any problems. They just look like really stout gears in there. And then the transmission actually has a slider drive shaft that goes down to a transfer case. So it is separate from the transmission itself. It's It's got the transfer case over here under the battery tray. And of course, we have slider drive shafts that go down to the front and rear. But the yokes on here are metal. So the slider shaft is plastic, but the yokes are metal. So that's really cool. You're not going to have to worry about the yokes popping apart while you're out there on the trail. But everything just has a really nice smooth feel to it. And, I think everything's going to work out really well here, guys. It just looks like Redcat did their homework on everything here. So that's the transmission. Let's talk about the receiver and the speaking controller while we're up here. So the receiver box is over here, and it's actually really well done. What they have is the receiver is tucked away inside, waterproof receiver, and they have little extension wires that come out that allow you to go and access your servo wire, your ESC wire without having to take that box apart. I think that's pretty neat. There's actually 2 extra ports here that allow you to do the same thing with some accessory wires. So that is pretty cool the way that's set up. It does have a little antenna wire sticking out, and they do give you that antenna tube. But over here is the HexFly 40 amp speed controller. This is done by Hobbywing, and it's fitted with a Dean's plug, rubber boot on the switch here, nice big heat sink. And then, of course, it has the little adjustment pills in here, so you could adjust the drag brake on here if you want to, or you could switch the pill over if you're running nickel metal or LiPo. So definitely, keep that in mind depending on what battery you buy. Speaking of the battery, here's the battery tray right here. Obviously, it uses Velcro straps. It's even got the Redcat logo on there. And it takes a number of different size batteries, nickel metal all the way up to a 3S LiPo. And I noticed it even has this little drop down here, so I don't know if that is a little accessory tray or maybe if you run smaller packs, but I just did want to point that out because that did jump out at me when I was looking over the truck. All right, so let's talk about, we've basically talked about the shock towers. Let's talk about the shocks now, actually. So the shocks are aluminum body shock, aluminum top cap, aluminum lower cap, and they are a threaded body. So it is a really nice looking shock, a bit larger than some of the other scale vehicles out there, and it has a really nice smooth feel to it. And again, lots of adjustability there. And I think overall they did a nice job on this particular shock. Feels really, really good. Now, while we're talking about suspension, let's talk about the suspension links. So up front is obviously a 3-link suspension by the look of it with the Panhard bar on there, which is extremely popular right now for the scale crawlers, and then a 4-link in the rear. And those links are aluminum links. Again, really heavy duty looking stuff going on. And there's some adjustability here as well. Here in the center skid plate, there is a number of different holes to move the position of the links. But the suspension on here just feels really good. Now let's talk about another big deal of this vehicle, the portal axles. And what's really nice about portal axles is it gives you the ground clearance that you need. Also gives you that torque without the twist, which is what a lot of people are looking for when they're looking for a competent crawler. I think it's really cool that they went with this style of setup, and it looks like they did a really good job on designing these axles. I mean, it's kind of a minimalist design here, so if you are, crawling over stuff and it does scrape on here, there's not that much to really hang up on. It is a composite axle case, and then the end caps obviously are all composite, but in there are metal ball bearings throughout, and those bearings are rubber shielded, but all the gears inside the axles are actually all steel. So we've got steel ring and pinion gears, we've got steel gears in the portals, we've got steel axles, obviously, that drive from the ring and pinion all the way out to the portal axle. So really nice setup. And when I took it apart, I was really surprised on how good everything looks. Even the spool, it is a really large aluminum spool in this that supports that ring gear. So really neat stuff going on. And then what really just blew me away when I was looking at it is these covers here. These are metal, guys. This isn't just plated plastic. These are actually metal. Really neat that they went and did that. It just really puts that axle up and over the top. Of course, the front is a steering knuckle style, so we could get that turning radius. Again, 47 degrees of steering. Just check that out, guys. I mean, that is a lot of steering and just really well done. All right, let's talk about now the rear bumper. Pretty much the same as the front. We've got the shackles hanging out the back here. It's got a little bit of Redcat logo in the top. It's even got the cat logo out here in the trailer hitch. This hitch cap is held in with a scale looking pin. Nice details on this truck. I really like it. Here are those rock sliders, help protect that body, and the body actually tucks nicely into those sliders. So hopefully nothing happens to the side of those. And I think that finally leaves the tires on this thing and the wheels. So the tires, again, they are Integro Super Swamper tires, and really nice compound on here, a nice soft compound. and it's got this firm like memory foam in here, so you push it down and you can kind of feel it slowly rise back up, and there it filled out the tire again. So these tires mount on beadlock wheels. These are a steel ring on here from what I've read, so it is a true beadlock. And again, this spare tire here as well is a true beadlock. So if for some reason you needed to, you can go and use this as well. So I think I've covered pretty much everything on this new Redcat Gen 8. Again, I am really excited that they sent one over to us. I haven't had a Redcat machine. I've never had one of their scale crawlers, and you know, this is an awesome introduction into what Redcat has to offer. I am super impressed. Now it just leaves what's it going to do out there on the trails. I got to go find a good spot to show you guys what this could do. All right, guys, time to wrap up this review and talk to you about the performance of the Redcat Gen 8. And for testing, I took it over to one of my favorite spots. It's called Lover's Leap in New Milford, Connecticut. And it's a spot where I take a number of vehicles. So if you're a frequent watcher of the channel, you've probably seen that scenery before. It's a super cool place to crawl. Lots of dirt, roots, rocks, and just, you know, really neat stuff to crawl over. So it was a perfect spot to test this. And the other reason is I was able to kind of compare it to some of the other vehicles that I've driven over there. So let's start off with the steering of this. And when I first started turning the wheel on this, I noticed that the steering servo on this is pretty loud. However, it's got a lot of torque to it. It actually holds the wheels really well while you're crawling through a lot of the rocks and stuff. What I like to do to test the steering on a stock truck such as this is I like to kind of jam the wheels into a crevice of the rocks and see if, you know, it could break the plane of the tire, you know, break traction of the tire and move the front of the vehicle. And this servo was capable of doing that. So, you know, when I jammed it in there, I cranked the wheel and it just shifted the truck over. So it's got some power to it. It's actually got some torque. Really nice to see in a ready to run. Usually the servo will stall out, but it did really well here. And it's got a nice tight turning radius. You know, I was able to get this truck turned around in a nice tight turn, which really helps when you're just crawling and navigating through rocks and stuff like that. And just out for fun when you're, you know, ripping around the backyard or something like that. It turns really, really well. So I was definitely impressed with the steering of this truck. Now let's move on to handling. And well, again, this truck impressed me because it was doing some stuff that other trucks I've tested there have not been able to do. You know, I've got pretty much the layout of that scene there. I know what rocks I like to go and crawl up, what dirt banks I like to go and crawl up and stuff like that. And, you know, as far as pulling itself up and over rocks, it did that really well in a number of areas. You know, it grabs traction. These tires have some great traction to them. They were able to pull the truck up and over. It had that torque. It had the wheel speed that I needed in a number of different areas. So that ability to crawl in like a scale type fashion and get up and over what you need is totally there. What was really nice was the clearance of those portal axles. I was able to span over some jagged rock and just clear it. It did get hung up a few times. That front diff cover does kind of have a you know, two sharp edges on the bottom, and that will catch once in a while. But, you know, you just rock the steering back and forth, it shifts the vehicle over and gets around what you needed to get over. But having that extra clearance there came in handy a number of different times. The truck itself was able to get up over a number of roots and stuff that I wasn't able to with some other trucks that I've tested. But overall, the handling is totally there. There is one instance where I was on an angle, and I knew from previous experience driving other vehicles on this side ledge, that, you know, it was probably going to roll over, and I had my camera right next to the truck, and I'm like, all right, just in case this thing does roll, got to just stick my camera out so I don't destroy the body just yet while, you know, testing it. And you know what? It made it through. Between the body weight and the CG of it, it didn't actually roll over. So, you know, you could push this thing pretty far, I think. You know, a lot farther than a few other rigs that are out there, you know, with more weight up on the roof. So this is a very capable truck. I was really impressed with some of the things it was able to do. All right, now let's talk a little bit about speed again. It's actually kind of slow, and you know, the torque is there, the speed is there when you need it, the wheel speed is there when you need it. But you know, if you are out, you know, walking on a straight trail, a flat trail, you know, it's probably about just walking pace. But you know, where it counts obviously is the torque and wheel speed. You know, when you're crawling stuff. And for that, you know, it definitely has that. Now, as far as durability, guys, I really, you know, I was out there for about a total of 3 hours, and it was a 39-degree day, so I was cold. But the truck seemed to do pretty well. There's no durability issues to really speak of at this point. You know, no slop in any of the links or anything like that. But the one thing I did notice that I do want to point out, and maybe you already picked up on this already, is this thing is pretty loud. Those Mod 1 gears in there, it is a pretty loud truck. It's got a loud steering servo, it's got the loud gears, and so I just want to kind of throw that out there that, you know, be aware of that. If you do have a truck already, it's quiet. This thing is on the opposite end of the spectrum there, so it's pretty loud. The other thing I noticed is even though it was cold out, the Velcro started to peel up off of those wheel wells. So just something to watch out for. You know, maybe you do want to go upgrade to those rare earth magnets later on down the road. But those are really the only two things that, popped up so far. I mean, other than that, this is a very cool looking truck. I like the Thunder flares on it. It's not completely scale. It's got, it's got that 79 type grill on there, and the stock fenders were rolled from the factory, but they had to put the fender flares on here because it's got that body mounting system that kind of integrates in it. So that's why they did it. I give them a pass on it. It looks pretty cool. I like the way they look. The fact that they give you a spare tire for the back, that's also very cool. The fact that you could put, I think I counted like 14 LED lights, 2, 4, 6, 8, and another 6 out back. So that's 14. I mean, that's a lot of light that you could throw on this thing. And then if you go get a light bar as well, I mean, you could really light this thing up for dusk. But overall, very cool. The side mirrors, they did fold over. I did run into a few branches, so they are still intact. And, like I have had some other trucks where those have completely broken off. Radio system works really well. Overall, guys, really easy truck to drive. It's a lot of fun. And I think wherever you're going to drive it, you're going to have a blast with it too. Redcat really has stepped things up here. I am interested in checking out more of the stuff that they have to offer. I know they had a number of new vehicles come out this year, 2018, but going forward, 2019, I think Redcat is really going to make a splash in the RC industry. If you've been looking at the Redcat Gen 8 to maybe get into crawling or add another crawler to your collection, I think you should definitely pull the trigger on it. This truck is definitely going to be the talk of 2019. So I know one question I'm going to get asked is what does it look like size-wise in comparison to other vehicles? Well, here you go, guys.